Oh, wow!
Chris Rock just ended the truce. Everyone thought the slap was history, that Will Smith's public apologies and his new, based on a true story comeback had buried the feud, until Rock started mocking again, just as another scandal exploded. In the same week, Will's former assistant brother Bilal vowed to drop evidence of an intimate relationship with Dwayne Martin if Jada Pinkett Smith didn't sue him, and a $3 million lawsuit against her surfaced with claims of threats and intimidation. Then came a second blow. A professional violinist accused Will of grooming and harassment on his 2025 tour, naming his company in the complaint. Within days, Will's camp issued denials, Jada went on radio swearing vengeance, and Chris Rock, silent for months, resurfaced laughing at sold-out shows. But if Will's rebuilding his redemption arc, why are the lawsuits multiplying, and why now, right when Chris starts talking again? The timing doesn't feel like coincidence. It feels like someone's pulling the pin on every secret at once, and what's about to surface next could finish what that slap started.
A violinist is suing Will Smith, claiming retaliation after he alleges that he was fired for reporting harassment while on tour with Smith. Brian King Joseph filed the lawsuit in California earlier this week, accusing Smith of deliberately grooming him for exploitation.
It starts to spread like a chain reaction. Screenshots, whispers, podcast clips, all circling the same name. Chris Rock hasn't said much publicly, but insiders say he doesn't need to. Every time a new scandal hits Will Smith, Rock's smirk does the talking for him. The timing is too sharp to ignore. March 2025, Will launches his Based on a True Story tour, trying to prove he's evolved beyond the slap. Within weeks, his own violinist files a lawsuit accusing him of grooming and harassment, claiming there were handwritten notes and strange items left in a hotel room. Smith's camp denies everything, but the optics are catastrophic. Industry chatter says the same thing. This feels orchestrated. The words grooming and harassment appear right as Rock's jokes about forgiveness go viral. It doesn't look like coincidence anymore. There's a sense that the comedy stage and the courtroom have merged into one arena, and Rock's shadow lingers over both.
Live. So Jada Pinkett Smith is in the middle of a thing, namely
a big legal thing.
A big legal thing because, according to someone, Jada threatened to put a bullet in them.
Someone who is a close friend of Will's. Bilal Salam says that he and Will have been very close friends.
By midweek, another blow lands. Brother Bilal, the man once introduced his family, doubles down on his threats, telling Jada Pinkett Smith she has 2 weeks to sue him or he'll leak evidence. He says he saw things, private, humiliating, career-ending, and the phrasing is brutal. He paints Will and Dwayne Martin in an intimate situation, says Jada's silence was part of a cover-up, and calls her a bald-head liar. The comment alone detonates social media. Jada fires back on the Breakfast Club, vowing legal action, dismissing him as a bitter opportunist. But she never files the suit. Instead, Bilal moves first, filing a $3 million claim alleging threats, intimidation, and attempted silencing. People close to the Smith circle say this is when the fear set in, not about losing money, but control. Bilal's lawsuit names specific encounters, dates, locations, even the number of people in the hotel lobby. Those details don't sound like random lies. They sound rehearsed and recorded.
Being fired or getting blamed or shamed or threatened or anything like that, simply for reporting misconduct or safety threats at work, is not okay.
By the time Will's representatives release their statement, calling the allegations completely fabricated, the damage has already mutated. The public doesn't believe denials anymore. They're waiting for contradictions. Will's Instagram page, once a cascade of family unity and motivational posts, goes quiet. Then he posts a smiling clip about learning forgiveness. It's instantly flooded with snake emojis and sarcasm. Chris Rock's team leaks nothing but lets rumors of a new stand-up segment float around. Fresh jokes, fresh material. The implication is poisonous. Rock's not done. He's just waiting for Will to dig himself deeper. What used to be a feud now feels like a long-term humiliation campaign, one fought with punchlines and lawsuits instead of fists. And through it all, Hollywood's silence grows heavy. Insiders describe it as career quarantine. People avoid Will like proximity could contaminate them. Here's where it stops making sense. How does a man trying to rebuild his image through a self-help album end up accused by his tour staff of misconduct within weeks? The violinist's complaint reads like a setup scene from a thriller. Strange notes left in his room, wipes, a bottle labeled with another man's prescription, and an earring belonging to no one on the team. When he reports it, he's terminated. Then, days later, a replacement violinist is hired. No explanation, no clarification, and yet Will's company releases a statement calling the accusations false and reckless. If everything is so clear, why replace him instantly? Why not defend the employee publicly? The gap between Will's public calm and the chaos underneath becomes impossible to ignore. Each denial sounds like a script read too many times. The same phrases repeat: completely false, categorically denied, legal action considered. The repetition feels mechanical, detached.
It was my man, this is probably irreparable.
People close to the situation start asking dangerous questions. Who is coordinating these hits? Are these unrelated implosions, or a targeted sequence meant to strip Will of credibility before something bigger surfaces? The patterns match. Each scandal drops right when Will tries to present something positive. Every time he steps forward, someone from his past steps out of the shadows. Bilal with his evidence, the violinist with his lawsuit, old rumors about Dwayne Martin reignited through podcasts. Even former protégés like Brycer Gray, once praising Will as a mentor, now appear in online reports tied to freak-off sessions allegedly orchestrated by Diddy and Smith. Nothing verified, everything viral, and that's the point. In the court of public perception, repetition becomes truth. Rock, meanwhile, plays his role perfectly. He never mentions names, but every knowing laugh from the crowd feels like a message aimed directly at Will. Inside Hollywood, the tension is palpable. Talent agents whisper about the blacklist effect. Studios quietly shelve projects tied to Will's production company. The Academy's 10-year ban is still in place, but now it looks almost lenient compared to the social exile that's formed around him. Those close to Jada say she's furious, less about the allegations and more about the loss of control. Her entire brand has been built on public vulnerability, healing talk, red table confessions. But now the tables turned, and every interview from her past plays like foreshadowing. Even the 2016 Oscars clip resurfaces online. Rock mocking Jada's boycott, Will forcing a grin, the tension invisible back then, but radioactive now. It's always been personal, says one industry publicist. Rock doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive. It's whispered that he still has unused material, stories, names, private moments, that could bury what's left of Will's dignity.
My feelings for him are just sadness. I feel sorry for somebody who was a young man in a industry who I believe was completely violated and used by people without, his permission, and he had to just go with it because these were powerful men, and in doing so he was promised more acting gigs, more career gigs, and none of that ever came. He was angry, upset, and it went down a very problematic route of substances, aggression, being charged, being arrested for bad things that he was.
And this is where the story starts to bend. Bilal isn't backing down, Jada isn't suing, and Chris Rock's silence is more strategic than forgiving. People inside Will's camp describe him as unnervingly calm, the same phrase used before his Oscars outburst. They say he believes the public will tire of scandal fatigue, that one new blockbuster or song will rewrite the narrative. But others see a man cornered by the consequences of his own need for control. Every attempt to manage perception backfires. Every apology becomes ammunition. Even his children, Trey, Jaden, and Willow, are pulled into it, their posts dissected for hidden meaning, their quiet support seen as damage control. One insider says flatly, "This isn't about forgiveness anymore. This is about survival." Yet the most unnerving part isn't what's already known. It's what everyone agrees on off the record. There's still more coming. More leaks, more jokes, and maybe one final blow waiting in someone's drafts.
And now, Bilal has filed a $3 million lawsuit against Jada, claiming that she basically threatened, it comes across like a threat,
The pattern starts to expose itself in whispers that no one can quite source. People inside the industry point back years, before the slap, before the jokes, and say Will's control issues have always been part of the ecosystem around him. It's the quiet stories that carry weight. The personal assistant fired after refusing an NDA, the staffer who said the Smith household ran on emotional obedience, the tour manager who allegedly vanished after raising concerns about payments. The money has always flowed fast, but now people start connecting that speed to silence. When Brycer Gray's name resurfaces, it's not just a tabloid distraction. Insiders say he was another product of that system, one that rewarded loyalty with access and punished disobedience with exile. His rumored lawsuit against Diddy and Will reads less like accusation and more like confession about the power circles young performers get dragged into and the trauma they carry out. Rock doesn't need to say a word. Each story that surfaces confirms his long-running punchline. Will Smith's biggest weakness isn't rage, it's the illusion of control.
You need to find a way to make sure your wife ain't talking about your private business.
The deeper the investigation moves, the more Jada's role starts to twist. She's not just reacting anymore, she's maneuvering. After years of healing talk, every statement now sounds like a negotiation. When she says on air that Bilal's claims are a money shakedown, insiders notice the shift. She's no longer protecting Will, she's protecting the brand. Red table talk is on hold, sponsors whispering about reputational risk, and yet she still positions herself as the victim of betrayal. What's curious is that her threats of legal action never materialize. Instead, her team floods media with stories about spiritual recovery and forgiveness. It's classic damage control by diversion. But what if the reason she can't sue is simpler? What if discovery would open every message, every photo, every contract they both signed? There's a line in Bilal's lawsuit about 7 people in her entourage and a promise of evidence too detailed to ignore. That line sits like a loaded gun no one wants to touch. The silence around it grows thicker each day. People who've worked with Will describe an atmosphere of rehearsed emotion, charm that switches on like lighting when cameras appear. That performance is now cracking. On March 24th, during an interview with the Associated Press, he calls his 10-year Oscars ban a blessing and talks about being the best human possible. But the humility reads hollow when placed beside the avalanche of lawsuits. Those who know him privately describe a man who's obsessed with optics, who studies audience feedback like data. One former collaborator says, he doesn't just read comments, he measures forgiveness. That line gains new weight as fans begin dissecting every apology video and every self-help lyric. Even the title of his comeback album, based on a true story, becomes ironic shorthand online. Memes call it based on too many stories. Rock's audience laughs. Industry peers don't. Behind closed doors, producers are re-editing contracts, pulling out clauses that tie their projects to Smith's production company. Hollywood can forgive anything except unpredictability, and right now, Will looks volatile again.
You seemed a little dazed afterwards, I'm not gonna lie.
No, I was gone, dude. You know, that was a rage that had been bottled for a really...
The lawsuits, however, keep reshaping the battlefield. Bilal's civil suit against Jada moves into its discovery phase, forcing attention back onto the Smith inner circle. Insiders describe frantic phone calls, deleted group chats, and a sudden surge of legal consultations among former staff. The most unnerving claim in Bilal's filings isn't about intimacy or power, it's about threats. He says Jada confronted him in a hotel lobby with an entourage and told him he'd end up missing. She calls it fabrication, but the level of specificity, place, date, number of witnesses makes it harder to dismiss. Add to that the new harassment case from the Violinist and the rumored Diddy Gray allegations, and a theme emerges. Proximity to Will Smith once meant opportunity, now it looks like risk. The lawsuits might not all win, but collectively they do something worse. They construct a believable pattern. A man once praised for positivity, now framed by fear and silence. The contrast is cinematic, almost too precise to be accidental.
Will knows that this is part of my healing journey. Will has been completely supportive of this book.
Meanwhile, the narrative around Chris Rock begins to shift from sympathy to calculation. He's turning pain into profit, touring globally, using the very scandal that humiliated him as currency. Every time he mentions forgiveness, audiences roar, interpreting it as mockery. But behind that laugh is something sharper, a sense that Rock's been playing the long game. Industry insiders claim he knew about the brewing chaos before anyone else, that someone close to the Smiths tipped him off about upcoming stories. Whether true or not, his timing is impeccable. Each time Will tries to reclaim dignity, Rock reappears. Each joke lands like a coded message. He's already won. True love starts at forgiveness, Rock says in a recent interview, a line that sounds compassionate until you hear the smirk beneath it. Forgiveness, in his hands, becomes punishment, a way to hold Will accountable forever without lifting another finger.
When he turned around that smug, that look like that, I've seen that look before. I feel like I got slapped every day with a bird.
It's not just about revenge, it's about hierarchy. Rock's calm becomes proof of moral superiority, while Will's apologies look rehearsed. In Hollywood, perception is reality, and Rock's image of restraint now overshadows Will's decade of redemption attempts. The story bleeds into every late-night conversation, every social feed, every gossip podcast. And what's emerging isn't just scandal fatigue. It's a shift in power. Insiders talk about how younger comedians now reference Rock as the man who stood still while the star lost control. That mythology sticks. Rock doesn't have to leak anything. The industry is doing it for him. Every revelation about Will, the former assistant, the violinist, the lawsuits, feeds the same narrative. That the slap was never a single act of rage, but the mask slipping on a man who's been covering chaos for years. And here's the part no one wants to say aloud. Hollywood isn't just punishing Will, it's protecting itself. Behind the headlines, lawyers whisper about containment, studios discuss moral clauses, and agents clean their rosters. The entertainment machine that once fed on the Smiths' brand of authenticity is now trying to erase its fingerprints.
Legal steps, and nothing never happened. Because you know why? I responded to him. And I sent something to the bar letting them know that he told the lie. All right, so let's get off of that. Let's go.
When Will's projects pause or vanish, it's not censorship, it's insulation. The industry learned from past scandals. Don't defend the star, delete them. Even Jada's upcoming memoir tour gets quietly reduced, with sponsors reconsidering engagement. Publicly, she blames scheduling conflicts. Privately, it's exhaustion. One executive describes it as brand fatigue. They've sold transparency for so long that now there's nothing left to sell. Every new truth sounds like marketing. The audience isn't buying it anymore. Still, something doesn't fit. For all the lawsuits, denials, and leaks, no one seems interested in proving or disproving anything. The legal threats look performative, the interviews rehearsed. The one person who could reset the story, Chris Rock, refuses to escalate. He doesn't need to. Insiders claim he's sitting on years of material, including details about what really happened in the days after the slap, when Denzel Washington and Tyler Perry pulled Will aside. Rumors swirl that Rock's private journal contains notes about that conversation, names, quotes, warnings. If that's true, the next leak could rewrite the entire saga. The idea that Rock has more to reveal keeps the Smith camp frozen. Every silence from him becomes a countdown. Every headline about Will feels like a prelude to something worse. It's the quiet, not the noise, that holds the most threat. Even now, the family dynamic keeps cracking in public view. Will appears at selective events, smiling through questions, while Jada's interviews grow more defensive. Their children avoid the subject altogether. What once looked like a united front now resembles coordinated avoidance. And yet, Will continues to insist that forgiveness is the path. His words echo Rock's, but the symmetry feels mocking. Two men, both public performers, both claiming peace, but only one convincing anyone.
Right? So that's one thing we're getting out of this, because as we about to go into that, I have a civil restraining order of violence filed against Jada Pinkett Smith. We're actively going through that right now. I'm going to share some of the court records.
So no one from her team or her can talk about you on social media on or off or contact you?
Yes.
Hollywood loves symmetry. It turns real pain into story arcs. But this symmetry feels like a setup. The same night Will posts about healing, Rock performs to a sold-out crowd in New York, ending his set with a line about choosing laughter over lies. The audience catches the reference instantly. They know exactly who he means. It all circles back to one truth that no statement can hide. The power dynamic has flipped. Will built his career on being untouchable, the star who could charm through scandal, laugh through critique, and command forgiveness on cue. But now, every attempt to regain that authority amplifies his fall. The lawsuits aren't just legal fights, they're metaphors for lost control. Jada's silence isn't mystery, it's damage management. Rock's calm isn't forgiveness, it's dominance. Insiders say the Smith team is preparing for one final counterstrike, a controlled media rollout meant to reclaim narrative space. But with every new claim, that space shrinks. The empire built on transparency now collapses under it. So what happens next? Does Chris Rock finally unleash what he's been holding? Does Will risk more exposure by fighting back? Does Jada still hold leverage, or is she preparing her exit? And who among their circle will speak next, now that silence itself has become suspicious? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who's really running this story now, and who's just surviving it? Because this isn't over. Not by a long shot.